Voters begin the process that will select the next mayor of Chicago. And as those hours dwindle down, we'll talk to the candidates. Hugh Hill is with Bernard Epton at Epton headquarters, and Jay Levine is here in our studio with Congressman Harold Washington.
Meanwhile, attempts to sign up enough election judges for tomorrow's voting may fall short. Chuck Gowdy will have that report, and Elizabeth Brackett will have the latest projections on how many people will be voting. And Pat Collins looks back at Chicago's wild and checkered political past when Hinky Dink and Bathhouse John ruled the Windy City. Those stories and much more coming up on Eyewitness News.
This is Eyewitness News with Joel Daly, Dick Johnson for Fahey Flynn, Dr. Dave Iser's weather, Al Lerner on sports, and the Eyewitness News team.
Good evening, everyone. 25 hours from now, it will finally be over. Campaign 83, and the fate of this great city will have been decided. We will have a new mayor whose first task it will be to bind up the wounds of a very bitter and divisive campaign. On this election eve, an extended report and final comments from the candidates. To sum things up, we first go live to Hugh Hill at Epton headquarters. Hugh?
Yes, Joel, we are here with Bernard Epton, and the crowd you hear behind me is listening to monitors behind us, but this is indeed the candidate for whom they are applauding. Bernie, the first question I want to ask you is about suggestions. I don't know exactly where they came from for a unity type of breakfast meeting with Harold Washington, regardless of who wins the election, the morning after the election.
Well, I think it's an excellent idea. I know that I tried to suggest that some time ago. That is a meeting. I suspect that Harold initiated this one, and I'm pleased that he did. Harold and I always got along very well in Springfield. I'm rather glad that this campaign is coming to an end, and I would hope that whoever wins, that we'll be able to reestablish that relationship. I don't think he's a vicious person. I don't think Harold thinks I am, and if in the course of a campaign remarks have been uttered that perhaps should not have been, he's probably, I hope, just as unhappy about it as I am. Certainly, I don't consider Harold a racist, and I know that Harold feels the same about me, so that, if anything, our number one problem will be truly to make this one city as it always has been.
But are you sure that you can do that job? I mean, there's no question about the fact that it's split right now.
Well, I'm quite sure that if Harold is elected, with my help, I'm quite sure that we can make it one city. If I'm elected with Harold's help, I think the same thing can be achieved. I think it's a question simply of showing our respective camps, our respective followers, that any animosity, any antagonism, any pre-election oratory was certainly personal, was certainly just exactly that, and under no circumstances would Harold or I stand for a divided city. It's too great a city. The sun will rise tomorrow. Hopefully the White Sox will win tomorrow, and hopefully after the election, Harold and I will be able to work together for the betterment of all the people of the city.
Are you disappointed that the campaign reached what everybody seems to consider a new low?
Well, I don't think it's hit a new low. I think that Harold has made some remarks that perhaps he shouldn't have. He may feel the same about me, but I think that on the whole, what has happened, you'll forgive me, Hugh, I think that the media has exacerbated the few bad, isolated incidents and made it look as if the campaign were solely that. I've issued position papers. Harold has issued position papers. The media has given very little credence or attention to them. I think that obviously the big test will be after the votes are counted, which one of us will be able to do the best job for the city.
Bernie, I know you haven't met Harold face-to-face since the debate. Also, in the Channel 7 studios the other day, you did not meet in the same studio, and Harold said, what does he think he's in, South Africa? He wouldn't even come into the same studio with me. Well, now, Mr. Washington is in our studio, and I've asked you this prior to this interview so that I'm not deceiving you in any way. Would you care to speak to Mr. Washington at this late hour?
I'd be pleased to. As a matter of fact, I think that Harold made an erroneous statement then. He obviously, like many of us, were reacting to erroneous press statements. I didn't indicate at that time that I wouldn't talk to Harold. I indicated at that time that I thought that I was going to he was going to speak first and I was going to speak last. Then they indicated something about, I never knew that a coin was flipped. I was not a party to it, and I was rather incensed that the studio, not Harold, was playing a double game. As far as Harold's concerned, I'm happy he's listening. I certainly wish him well. I hope he comes in second, but by all means, I think that he's a man of goodwill, and I hope that after the election is over, we can both work together to restore this city.
Mr. Epton, this is Jay Levine. Congressman Washington, do you agree with that statement, that both of you perhaps have made statements that you shouldn't have this election?
Oh, I don't think it would serve any useful purpose to regurgitate that. One has a tendency to slough over his own faults and exacerbate or dramatize the opponents. I would be more concerned, if I may, sir, deal with the question of what the future of Chicago will be. I have no doubt that Mr. Epton would cooperate with me when I am mayor, and I don't want to comment on that any further. As a matter of fact, I made it very clear that I think we should get about the business of resolving whatever conflicts there may exist. And I've called, as you know, for a meeting of all of the combatants in the recent campaign, both primary and general, and wanted to make it an ecumenical thing and invite members of the cloth clergy to sit with us on the Wednesday after the election and just discuss the future of the city in a less controversial scene. But I think reflecting on past differences at this point won't serve any useful purpose. I think people are going to the polls tomorrow. I think we should do what we can to send them there on an upbeat, and whatever differences are there can be resolved at the polls. I'm a mature individual. I've been in politics all my life. I'm a public servant. I've tasted defeat, and I've enjoyed victory. We're looking forward to victory, but I want to go into this campaign with no animus toward anyone. I didn't enter it with any animus toward anyone. So I don't think it would be any useful purpose to reflect on any other.
Do you want to say anything, however, to Mr. Epton, who is listening to you right now, instead of to Jay and to the audience? Do you have any message for him?
Well, I wish you well, Bernie. You know I'll do everything I can as mayor to make things easy for you. We would expect that your tremendous talents would be available to me, as they have in the past, as when we worked together in the General Assembly. My door will always be open. It's always been open. I don't carry animus. You know, political life is not the whole world.
Harold,
we've carried on a spirited campaign.
Harold, it works both ways. You and I lived together for a long time, and I hope that between us we can convince some of our more obstinate followers that really, beneath it all, we probably have the same vital goal, and that's making one vital, good Chicago city.
We have you two gentlemen here, if you can both reflect on this question. Harold Washington said about 7 weeks ago, before this primary started, before the primary election was decided, if it is Epton against Harold Washington, Chicago cannot lose. Harold Washington, do you still feel that way? Bernard Epton, do you feel that way?
Yes, I feel that way. I think that, I think, Harold, I'll make a better mayor. The fact is, I think Chicago will survive under your leadership without any problem.
Yes, even though there's a spirit of camaraderie here, Bernie, let's not lose sight of the fact that this is a campaign. And I submit that obviously and clearly I would make the better mayor. Certainly, and obviously Chicago will not dwindle and fall into the distance whether Bernie or I defeated. I can think of any number of people, for example, who bring this city together. But I think we ought to end that note. The questions are designed to bring out more conflict, and I think the time for conflict is over. People are home at night trying to get their heads together relative to what they want to do. And I want them to go to bed at night and reflect on the nature and the future of the city rather than upon past differences.
You know, this is beginning to sound like a love fest. I covered these two fellas for a long time down in Springfield. Believe me, these two people were friends in Springfield. I can attest to that. And they've been friends ever since the two of them got together down there. What I want to know is how you got so far apart.
Well, maybe we had too many advisors around us, or maybe we didn't have enough. But the fact remains that knowing Harold as I do, and as he knows me, we both have a great love for Chicago, and I think that surmounts any personal ambitions we might have.
Well, I appreciate that, Bernie, but I must say, I wish he'd said that sooner.
Can Chicago, gentlemen, can Chicago recover from the apparent nationwide and perhaps even worldwide black eye it's gotten as a result of this campaign? And do you gentlemen feel you bear some responsibility for that negative image across the country and perhaps the world?
Do I personally feel so?
Do you, as a result of the campaign, both of you gentlemen?
Absolutely not. I don't think we should slink around like thieves in the night, this city, because some of our problems have been dramatized across the world. We've got to look at it a different way. The people throughout this world, and I do mean world, look on Chicago with some degree of pride and hope. They are aware of our problems. They're aware of our good points. We propound them both, unfortunately, for the bad ones. So I don't think we should be overly concerned about outside concern. They mean us well. What we should be, I think, is more reflective about the problems that we know are here, and not use this as a period to make excuses for whatever problems exist, but just a vow to each and every one of us that we will try to improve. And I think anyone sitting out there tonight, of the 3 million people in the city, will admit that we have to improve a lot of things. This is a small world. It's a small city when you get right down to it. Interrelations must be emphasized. Multi-ethnicity calls for sensitivity toward other people's concerns and needs and cultures. And I think that's what we should be concerned about more than anything else. So notwithstanding that many of the world have seen some of our bad faults, they're also aware of our good points. And I think
does Mr. Upton feel that the two of you bear some responsibility for this image, for the problem?
No, as a matter of fact, I think that we have received an extremely bum rap. I think that I would echo what Harold has said, but I would simply emphasize that the media, and I don't absolve any of you, you've exacerbated the bad situations which have been very rare. Unfortunately, obviously the foreign press comes in for a few days or a few hours and acts as if that's Chicago proper, when the truth is that we have lived in peace and harmony for hundreds of years, and the Lord willing will continue to do so for thousands of years yet to come.
If I could ask both of you gentlemen this question, how will Chicago, give me one way, if indeed both of you are elected, that Chicago will be different 4 years from now? One thing affecting people's lives, and if each of you can answer that question.
Well, no, you know me well enough to know now that I don't oversimplify anything. One way doesn't begin to answer the problem. There is multifaceted problems. They're interwoven. To resolve one, you've got to deal with another. I would suggest that what Chicago needs at this moment, and which this campaign can resolve, is a mayor who has the commitment to the best interests of the city, a mayor who has the knowledge in order to deal with this city council, and I submit categorically that I will move into that council with a majority of the members in synchronization and agreement with my program. What the city needs is leadership and vision, and I think we can resolve that sort of thing.
Let's stop there for a minute. That's been your charge all day, that the council will control Mr. Upton, whereas you will control the council. Mr. Upton, how do you reply to that?
Well, very simply, I think that Harold is wrong on both counts. I don't think he'll control the council, and I don't think the council will control me. I think that certainly attempts may be made to manipulate one way or the other, but I think that the fact remains that people have expressed themselves both through the previous mayor's election, both through the aldermanic contest, that the people's will be expressed both at the mayor's office and at the council level. And regardless of who runs the city, Harold or Congressman Washington or myself, the people really are going to have greater input than ever before. As a matter of fact, the one big thing that's been removed that neither one of us have to contend with will be that question of the power of patronage, the question of power of who will control what job. The courts have ruled very conclusively, and I think that whether we like it or not, we're going to have to live with it, and so will the city council.
You two seem to agree on that issue now, yet that's been one of Congressman Washington's campaign issues. He says that you favor patronage.
I didn't say he favored patronage. He said it himself. Made it very clear. What I said was, in anticipation of the district court's ruling, and we got the third one a week ago, that patronage in the sense of control over city employees and extracting from them political activity, that had to end by edict of the federal district court. I anticipated it came down, so what I've been saying is now a fait accompli. Mr. Upton, on the other hand, said he supported the patronage system.
Did you ever say that, Mr. Upton?
He wants to know if you ever said that you support the patronage system.
Of course I do. I still support it, but I also support it within the bounds of the law. As far as I'm concerned, the patronage simply means that the mayor has the right to select those people, regardless of party affiliation, who do not come under any of those decrees. By the same token, not for a moment will their political background be involved, nor will they be forced to do any political activity either for or against a candidate. So
in other words, you're saying you should be able to appoint whomever you wish to do
correct.
any office you want.
That's correct.
And you'll be taking Republicans?
Well, I won't even know if they're Republicans. I'll be taking competent people, regardless of party. As far as I'm concerned, on their questionnaire or personnel file, it won't even show what their party affiliation is.
Yes, but Bernie, you know a lot of Republicans. 2 of them Republicans served in your campaign. And I'm sure you'll take them into your office with you.
Well, certainly I'm not naive. I will take into my campaign, if I'm elected, people who have worked with me, people who I have confidence in, and people who I have ability. But there are many people who work
Mr. Hill, let me say this, if you will. The issue is becoming clouded. Now, let me clear it up. Obviously and clearly, and the federal district court recognized that, the court said clearly that one must have the power to appoint those people who will be directly responsible for implementing the policies and programs of the mayor. That's clear. We're talking now in the neighborhood of maybe 800-900 of people. But the issue doesn't go to that at all. The issue goes to the tremendous bureaucratic group of people in this city in the area of 35,000 who heretofore, most of them, have been controlled by ward committeemen and controlled by the mayor and forced to do political work. When we say patronage, that's what we're talking about. Now, that's a narrow definition of patronage, but that's where the rub comes in. This conversation has gotten confused. No one in his right mind, and certainly the federal district courts in their right mind, is going to force or saddle an executive with nothing but civil service employees all the way up to the policy-making level. So we're not talking about that. I took the position early on. I made that position very clear. It is now a fait accompli by edict of the federal district court that this city and its government, its leaders, its mayor has no right to invoke upon city employees in that mass bureaucracy the extra yoke of doing political activity. And this is where I assume Mr. Epton and I departed. Now, just to make that clear for the voters of this city, Bernie, do you agree with my analysis? And what did you mean by patronage specifically in terms of that massive group of bureaucratic people? So otherwise, voters are going to leave here, and maybe some interrogators are going to leave here confused as to what we're talking about.
Very simply, we're probably talking about the same thing, just using different words. I have said from the very beginning, Harold, even way back before you did, that I would apply by, even before the Bureau decree, that I would not ask any employees. What I was suggesting was that civil service, the personnel code, presently protects many people who are incompetent and don't belong in government.
But in short, then, are you saying, Bernie, as I'm saying, that the massive number of city employees, that 30-some-odd thousand, should not have the yoke of political activity placed on their back? In short, if you can define those as patronage, can you agree with me here and now that that patronage not only must go and should go, but the court has said it has to go? Would you agree to that?
Harold, I can't let you do me one up. As a matter of fact,
no, just ask the question.
I agreed with you before you agreed with me.
Gentlemen, before we get into a spontaneous debate here, I just have one quick question, and thank you for staying with us, Mr. Epton.
There'll be no debate. Harold and I understand each other.
I believe you invited the congressman to breakfast on Wednesday morning.
You got it backwards.
Okay, who invited whom, and is there going to be a breakfast?
I invited all of the opponents in this campaign, both primary and general, to come to breakfast Wednesday and discuss this city in the presence of an ecumenical group of ministers and so forth. Bernie at first said, who's going to pay the bill? I said, let's go Dutch. Then he came back and he offered to pay it. I accept.
So is there going to be a breakfast, Bernie?
Between the two of us, evidently.
There's going to be a breakfast, Harold, but we better keep that invitation limited now.
You're going to pick up the tab, Bernie?
I'll pick up the tab, but he better not invite all of the clergy all over the city.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much, Mr. Epton. Hugh Hill out with Mr. Epton. We'll be back in just a minute with Harold Washington once again, and his final thoughts on this election eve. So stay with us.
right out of a minute.
5 out. We got 2.5 minutes for all those. Stand by. Here we come.
Well, we've heard from Bernard Epton. We've also heard a little bit from Harold Washington and a bit of a debate between the two candidates this election eve. Now we rejoin Harold Washington. Jay Levine's with us to get some final thoughts on this election eve. Mr. Washington?
Congressman, you said right after the primary that you don't believe in telephone polls. You say that they do not show what actually is out there in the votes, but that your straw poll is the one that's really accurate. You said your straw poll hit it right on in the primary, exactly what it was. What does your straw poll show now?
Let me clarify my position on telephonic polls. I think they missed the mark because you lack anonymity, and many people simply do not want to discuss their political feelings over the phone with a stranger. The straw poll is more anonymous, and so people are more inclined to be candid with the interrogator. Our straw polls show that we have been ahead from day one. We've maintained that lead, and that we moved upward precipitously over the past 6, 7 days.
So you had a percentage in the primary. You gave me an exact percentage in the primary. What does that percentage show now?
Well, we're not going to repeat that. We're not going to give you that. We're going to let you salivate over the outcome, and I will do this for you, Jay. I will put our results in a sealed envelope and put them in the presence of an escrowee, and I'll bet you we'll hit it right on the head.
All right, we'll hold you to that. Do you have any regrets about anything you have done in the campaign over the past 7 weeks since primary night?
Not really. When you look at the overall thrust and accomplishment, what we succeeded in doing in this campaign was succeeded in doing something that's never been done in the history of the city. This campaign has reached out into neighborhoods and areas and brought under its umbrella people who had been just turned off with the democratic process. If you trace it from day one, there was a tremendous registration, unprecedented in this city. Then there was a tremendous outpouring of votes in the gubernatorial campaign, which almost pulled it out for Mr. Stevenson. Then we had a tremendous draft movement, and I was a recipient of it, and I'm proud to say it. I'm humbled by it, but proud of it. And lastly, our campaign involved people of zeal and honesty and decency and experience, but who had never been in the political process. We feel it, for example, in the primary, approximately 12,000, 14,000 people.
Excuse me for interrupting, but the question was, have you done anything that you regret?
Oh, no, no, no. We have comported ourselves, I think, as decent, honest, understanding people concerned about the future of this city. The minutia which may have come up is overly transcended by the fact that we have achieved our main goal to bring into the mainstream of political process in this city people all over the city who were not concerned.
Congressman, we have run out of time. Thank you for joining us.
I had so much more to say.
I know you do. And presumably we will be hearing a considerable amount more after the elections if your viewpoint prevails.
It will. And I have a feeling from the twinkle in your eye that you know it will.
Those are contact lenses. Coming up, Elizabeth Brackett with the latest projections on the voter turnout tomorrow, and Chuck Gowdy looks at the rush to sign up election judges. And there still may not be enough.
All day then.
77.8 in
1 minute.
the primary.
Chuck, you can move any to your
A record-breaking municipal election.
I'm right up against this thing.
Opposed to- Which cameraman?
30 back.
When you have a chance, really get dry.
I haven't seen you for so long. How are you? What are you doing? The Chicago what?
Dick, lean back again, please. 15
Terrific.
seconds.
You look great.
One for the app too.
10 seconds. 5, here we come.
Voter turnout will be the key in tomorrow's election, and if the trends hold up, this could be a record-breaking election. Elizabeth Brackett is here to explain. Elizabeth?
Well, Joel, if there is one thing both camps agree on tonight, it is the importance of turnout. It's the ball game, say advisors on both sides.
And with both candidates drawing huge crowds the last few days of the campaign, with Chicago voters saturated by TV, radio, and newspaper campaign coverage, there is one other thing all sides agree on. Very few voters are sitting this one out.
I think everybody in the city, black, white, brown, is coming out to vote, and I think we're going to have a monster turnout.
One reason for the high turnout projections are the unusually large number of people who have come down here to City Hall to vote absentee.
We've had about 29,000 completed applications, which is more than double 4 years ago, and which is also up over 1,000 from the February 22nd election.
Conventional wisdom says with more white registered voters than black registered voters in Chicago, a high turnout will favor Epton.
It's not a question of black and white. It's a question of more people coming out generally benefit that individual who is the challenger.
But the Washington organizers heatedly dispute the high turnout benefits Epton theory.
Absolutely unfounded based upon our figures and projections. We feel that we will hold our own if the vote does go to 1.3.
But just as soon as the Washington camp said it could win even if the vote goes to 1.3 million, the Epton camp said the vote totals may hit 1.4 million. It doesn't matter, counted Washington supporters. Our winning percentages will increase right along with the higher totals. With all those voters out there, one other factor worries both camps, vote fraud. And Chuck Gowdy is here to tell us about preparations to prevent it. Chuck?
Elizabeth, the official eyes on tomorrow's election will focus on two areas, as usual, vote fraud, and this time on the possibility of violence. First, vote fraud.
As election judges, you are the people responsible for the conduct of the election.
Some of the nearly 15,000 official election judges are being trained right into election eve. The 5 judges per precinct, an even number of Republicans and Democrats, represent the front line against vote fraud. There was a last-minute surge today in people signing up to act as election judges tomorrow. Last week, the Chicago Board of Elections reported it was down 3,200 election judges. And despite this madhouse today, they still expect to be a couple hundred judges short tomorrow. So Chicago elections workers today were busy checking and double-checking lists of registered voters to make tomorrow's job easier. And also tomorrow, the city will step up its vote fraud patrol.
We're going to double our teams, have 100 teams out on the street making random checks of all the precincts. They'll be available to answer any calls or complaints. We've increased our number of hotlines from 20 to 25. We'll have additional attorneys standing by for that. And in fact, what we're trying to do is have a repetition of February 22nd.
Primary election day was nearly free of vote fraud, according to federal authorities, who are planning again tomorrow to dispatch several hundred FBI agents, U.S. Marshals, and assistant U.S. attorneys to spot-check polling places. They will be joined by thousands of poll watchers representing state agencies, the candidates and their parties, 13 public interest groups, and as usual, 1 Chicago police officer in each precinct. But tomorrow, an extra 1,000 officers will be on the street, and the tactical unit will be at full staff, officially, to handle victory celebrations.
The posture will be taken will be the usual posture of enforcing the law without fear or favor on everyone, regardless of who they are or their political persuasion. If they violate the law, they will go to jail. As simple as that.
Police officials tonight say they are also keeping a close eye on their own, considering the active political role many rank-and-file cops have played in this supercharged campaign. Gentlemen. Thank you, Chuck. Still ahead, a mystery death on the near north side. Pat Collins with the saga of Hinky Dink and Bathhouse John. And coming up next, Dave Iser with Chicago's Election Day weather and the outlook for the rest of the week.
over there?
Correct.
Al Lerner, ABC News.
When did the Blackhawks play next?
Thursday.
Against?
5 out, here we go. Stand by.
Temperature, direction of the wind, temperature of the lake water. They will be trying to find anything to explain the voter turnout tomorrow, so it's up to you.
Well, Joel, right now it looks like the weather will be superb. In fact, tomorrow looks like a better day than we've seen in quite some time, which, if it does anything in the election, will increase voter turnout. Take a look at the national map, and still we're abounding with high pressure, which is going to let the sun come out a little bit, and temperatures should be able to climb into the 50s tomorrow. What we are watching now, however, is something that will affect our weather probably after the polls close tomorrow, and that is another large late winter or early spring storm developing in the Rocky Mountains. It looks like for us it will be nothing but rain. Right now the track of this is uncertain as to exactly how it will affect the middle portion of the country. At any rate, it's bad news because flooding still continues in portions of northwestern Tennessee, throughout Alabama, Louisiana, and Mississippi. We don't need any more rain draining into the Mississippi River. Take a look at tomorrow's highs. You can see the storm will be about over here, pulling cold air down behind it and pushing warm air up in front of it. So tomorrow we'll get into the 50s and probably by Wednesday into the 60s. Here are some of the clear skies out to our west. As you can see, there's not much of a space. So late tonight and then early tomorrow morning, we'll see some stars and some sun. And then it's going to cloud up again. Here you see the present statistics whizzing by. Winds out of the east at 9 and the barometer is rising. Temperatures just about in the lower 40s. Here's your forecast tonight. Clouds will clear out, leaving us with starry skies and kind of seasonably cool temperatures, 34 to 38. Tomorrow, some sun in the morning and then increasing cirrus nearest. Those are those high ice crystal clouds. Milder, though, 50 to 54, except about 46 along the lakefront. Tomorrow night, some light showers, breezy and mild. It won't start until after the polls close, 42 to 46. Scattered showers and thunderstorms in the forecast for Wednesday and Thursdays as temperatures climb up into the 60s Wednesday, back into the 50s on Thursday, and maybe even some lingering rain showers on Friday. So although we get a little wet, it won't start till after the polls close tomorrow.
So there is no excuse.
No, there is no excuse to get out and vote.
Nothing
Absolutely
to blame. All right. Still ahead, Chicago's rich political past, the past of Hinky Dink and Bathhouse John. And coming up next, Chicago police scramble to find a motive for a mysterious death on a near North Side jogging trail.
Did you get that, Al?
They're struggling. They've been...
Actually, I have an idea. I think the man who was bumped off was a caller to Eyewitness Anonymous who was found out.
But it's non-traceable.
Sure, that's what you say. You've assured them.
30 seconds. You know.
But you guys know how to spoil a good thing now.
Oh, we did.
Yeah.
Really? Hey.
It's a good picture of Bernie, too, don't you think?
Really, Harold wants his picture.
Yeah.
10. Harold wants his picture after the election tomorrow here on the wall.
5. Here we go.
In Lincoln Park tonight, police are struggling to find clues in the early morning murder of a Chicago man. Bill Nigut updates the crime.
Police say that 41-year-old George Michaels was shot 5 times in the head, chest, and back, and was left to die on this jogging path near the Cannon Drive entrance to Lincoln Park Zoo. Michaels' body was discovered by an unidentified woman shortly before 5 this morning while she was walking her dog in the park. Investigators say that footprints found on the scene indicate that Michaels was shot down as he tried to run away from his assailant. Because they found $53 in Michaels' pocket, police don't believe robbery was the motive for the shooting. Just what brought George Michaels to this jogging path and who he was with remains a mystery to the police.
I would say he wasn't out jogging. He had jogging shoes on, but the rest of the outfit that he had on does not match the jogging shoes. I would say, if I had to just take a guess, he was brought there for other reasons than jogging.
Michaels was a widower who lived with his mother in this North Side 3-flat building. He worked as a roofer, but had been out of a job since last summer.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear this, honest to God.
He's a pleasant person to know?
Yes, very pleasant, really.
Police say that Michaels had been arrested for disorderly conduct on several occasions, but so far they haven't uncovered anything in his background that would help explain why he was murdered this morning. This is Bill Nigut for Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Tonight, the death penalty has been ruled out for 2 brothers convicted of murdering 23-year-old Joanne Barkauskas, that killing ordered by the victim's husband, Edward. Edward has been sentenced to life in prison, and now it appears that Joseph and Kenneth Berenger will get the same sentence. Judge Romy Palmer will issue a final decision on the conspiracy murder next month. Al Lerner is next with sports, including a preview of the White Sox as they get ready for tomorrow's opener with the Baltimore Orioles.
You want to? I tell you, if you want. If you. All right, now we're going to take. After this, keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. It's the next scene after this where he's walking up the fairway. Ready? And. What a shot. Cue. On that scene, that's where you cue it, on the beginning of that scene. 12 seconds. Just don't trip or anything.
30 back.
Just give.
Five back. Here we come.
200-300.
The weather's just fine. Thank you very much for the Masters, I hear.
Finally.
Yeah,
that's
after
right.
a couple one
The
day.
azaleas are blooming. That's right. Green is the color of the day for golfer Seve Ballesteros. He got his second green jacket for winning the Masters this afternoon in Augusta, Georgia. He also got plenty of green in the form of $90,000. Ballesteros started the day with an eagle and a birdie. He never looked back. That's his second Masters championship. We'll show you Seve coming up on the 18th green. He had a 4-shot lead, never in doubt. And look at this chip, his last shot of the day for par on the 18th, and that's it. Seve Ballesteros easily takes the Masters, his second Masters championship. The Cubs, however, are still looking for their first victory of 1983. Now, Wayne Nordhagen robs Johnny Bench here, but it wasn't to be for Dickie Knowles. He pleaded innocent to assault charges and drunken charges in Cincinnati this morning. He was knocked out of this game and then sent back to Chicago and has enrolled in an alcohol rehabilitation program. Cesar Cedeno hit the home run that made it a 4-run second inning. There goes Dickie Knowles. He is back in Chicago now trying to overcome his problems. The only bright spot for the Cubs today, a Wayne Nordhagen homer. The only Cub run, they lose 5-1. They are now 0-6 on the season. Back here in Chicago, the White Sox are neither winning nor losing, simply getting acquainted with their new and improved Comiskey Park. If you have a ticket for Congressman Harold Washington, you'd like to go to the game. For the high rollers, there are $35,000 a year skyboxes now. And for the rest of us, there are more restrooms at Comiskey Park to make life at the ball yard a little more comfortable. Jim Rose took in the sights as the Sox worked out today.
It's not the same old Comiskey Park. A splatter of paint here, new luxury suites there, and a total of $14 million spent over the past 2 years. And Sox manager Tony La Russa is pleased with the renovation of the park.
The dugouts are better, the scoreboard, but it's still Comiskey Park. You look around, you know, it's still the oldest park in the league. It's got all its tradition. I still get goose pimples when I see it.
The Sox worked out for the first time this afternoon at home in preparation for the Sox Park opener. Many crowded around the batting cage to watch Bull Luzinski crank a few out. And it should be easier for him now that the plate is 8 feet closer to the wall. Pitchers worked their arms loose, fielders did the same, and Harold Baines is the same old Harold, quiet as usual. You're still a man of few words, Harold.
Well, that's the way I've always been. You know, it's no use to changing just because I'm in professional baseball.
This time last year, workmen here at Comiskey Park had to shovel off some snow to get ready for the home opener. Well, this season it'll be a little bit different, not as drastic as that. It'll be a little bit cold like it was for the Cubs opener at Wrigley Field last week, so you better dress pretty warm. From Comiskey Park, Jim Rose, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Well, the ice is still down at the stadium, and the Hawks came back today from St. Louis after they eliminated the Blues last night in 4 games. That's Dave Feimster, who made it the second goal for the Hawks, but Brian Sutter came back on the deflection, and it was a tie game. Now, Murray Bannerman gives a lot of credit to the other goalie, Mike Liut.
Got our leads, and we had all kinds of chances to score, and Mike Liut played so well that we just couldn't get the puck back. You know, and when you get a goaltender making the big saves like that for you, and when you keep working, you get a break here or there, and all of a sudden you're back in the game. So, you know, maybe we might have let up a little bit, but you also have to give their guy a lot of credit because he held them in when they really shouldn't have been in the game.
Well, Steve Larmer got what proved to be the winning goal in the 5-3 victory, and now they look ahead to Thursday night at the stadium against, that's right, the hated Minnesota North Stars. Here's Bob Murray.
It'll be good hockey. It's all year long. I've never played in any better hockey games in my life. It was just a carryover from last year in the playoffs, and I think you're going to see great hockey, a lot of hitting, and it's just going to be super.
It is going to be a lot of hitting. These two teams just don't like each other. It's sort of like politics on ice.
Thank you, Al. Well, as Chicago gets ready to go to the polls tomorrow, a look back to the days of 2 of Chicago's most famous political characters, Hinky Dink and Bathhouse John. Pat Collins with their story is next.
10 back. 5, here we come.
We've all heard the stories about crooked politicians, but the modern day Pauls are pikers compared to Bathhouse John and Hinky Dink. Pat Collins looks back.
1890 to 1915, turn of the century Chicago. It's said to be one of the wildest and wickedest times a city has ever known. Prostitutes in the street for the asking, gambling games and wheels in the back bars, opium dens, scams, scoundrels, all-night saloons. It was in this era and in this area that two men, one called Hinky Dink and the other Bathhouse John, built one of the most powerful political partnerships in the history of Chicago. At one time, it was estimated that these two Chicago aldermen held control over 400 opium dens, 100 gambling rooms, and more than 7,000 saloons.
143 East Madison. There's a little park here today dedicated to Alexander Hamilton. But back in the turn of the century, there was a bathhouse here, a place where gentlemen could come for a steam bath and a rub-down. And that's how John Coughlin got his start. He was a rub-down artist in a bathhouse, and his clients were men of great political influence. And you might say that Bathhouse John rubbed them the right way.
The Friends of Bathhouse made him a Democratic Party good guy, an alderman of Chicago's soon-to-be notorious First Ward.
Now, this is Hinky Dink's old territory, down around the 300 block of South Clark. In fact, he owned a big bar here called the Working Men's Exchange.
Hinky Dink. His real name was Michael Kenna. How on earth did he ever get to be called Hinky Dink?
Somebody gave him that name when they were in a steam room and he had nothing on, and they took a look at him and they promptly named him Hinky Dink.
Bathhouse and Hinky Dink got rich from protection money. The payoffs went something like this. The price for stopping an indictment, $1,000. Want to keep a house of prostitution open? $100 a week. Want to sell whiskey after hours? $50 a month. Poker and crap tables? $25 a week for each table. The graft amounted to millions each year, and those are $1910, not the cheap money we deal with today. Now, in all the years that passed since those days, the council has had its share of corruption and characters, but nobody has really come close to Bathhouse John and Hinky Dink, Chicago's great masters of manipulation.
Certain basic elements of that system still prevail. I've always liked Mike Royko's comment when he refers to aldermen and the city generally, saying that instead of the slogan that the city has, you know, a city in a garden, herbs in horto, he has written several times that the slogan ought to be, especially in the city council, you know, ubi est mea, where's mine?
They say that crime doesn't pay, but nobody ever said that about politics. Just ask Hinky Dink and Bathhouse John. I'm Pat Collins, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Lights aren't on yet.
Yeah.
I
hope you can use it there. Or I said,
And that will wrap up Eyewitness News at 6. For a look at what's coming up after the Oscars, let's go to the newsroom and Marianne Childers.
Thank you very much, Dick. We'll be out with the mayoral candidates tonight, the last night before the voting begins. And Don Rose will analyze voter turnout and just what it means to the candidates' chances. Also tonight, Chicago's Latino vote. That's going to be a very important element in Election 83. Also, a visit to Melrose Park, where people there celebrate Oscar night almost as well as the people in Hollywood. We hope you'll join us tonight after the Academy Awards.
Good night, Marianne. And then following the news, ABC's Nightline. Tonight, the subject is Chicago's mayoral election. What else? Half of the network is in town. We'll see you again tomorrow, the big election day. Thanks for being with us.
Good night.